They're going to go through all the video evidence that is now coming out, including all the different angles that we've seen of this shooting. I do want to show some viewpoints here and get your reaction, but I also want to warn viewers that this can be a bit disturbing. So let's go ahead and start with the first video.
No!
Okay, now I want to show you a different angle, which the administration says clearly shows that the woman was hitting the agent. Now, here's some of that video slowed down. Richard, what do you see?
So I see that actually there's a first agent who goes up to the car and puts his hand on the vehicle, and is telling her either to stop or to get out. And I forget what he actually says, but you can see he's touching the vehicle, and then the vehicle starts moving while he is touching it. What was that agent thinking, both subjectively and objectively, at that time when the driver started to drive away, when you had a agent holding onto the car and could have been dragged, and also the car was coming at him? Did that agent have time to jump out of the way so that he would not be struck? Did that agent see that other agent was being pulled, and that's why he fired the weapon, because he's allowed to not only protect himself but protect other agents? Or was there something else going on in his mind? And it's really going to come down to those milliseconds or seconds of what happened immediately before the shooting and what happened during the shooting. And then the final thing I'll say, and I've only heard things about this on other newscasts, is that the agent who was involved in the shooting, the actual shooting agent, he might have been involved in another case where somebody was dragged and injured. And if that's, in fact, something that happened to him, that also goes to his state of mind as to why he would react the way he did in the amount of time that he had to react. So all of that's going to go into the assessment that's going to be made as to whether this agent acted within the scope of his duties, was basically protecting himself or other agents from serious physical harm or death.
Another angle of the shooting that we brought to you yesterday, which I mentioned, which is key. This video was obtained by the local ABC affiliate. We've circled the agent and we've slowed down the video. Look at this. I'm sorry, but he's getting run over when he fires the shot. You can clearly see her hit him. That's what happens. It's blurry, but you see him put his foot back to brace himself as he was hit by the car before he fires and moves to the side. Here over 24 hours since the fatal shooting of a female driver by an ICE agent in Minniapolis, Minnesota. And we're getting a much more clear picture of what happened. The media all over X, the mainstream, have lost their effing minds. They've lost their minds about this. The local authorities in Minnesota and Minneapolis are gone. They're too far gone to be reasoned with. They're going to get an ICE agent killed. That's what's going to happen. They're not going to be happy until an ICE agent is dead. I realize a woman died yesterday. I'm sorry, but that was her own doing. Who among us would not understand that if we did not respond to law enforcement surrounding our car, telling us to get out, we were endangering ourselves? Who among us would expect to live if we pressed the accelerator with a cop in front of our SUV? That's what she did. Everyone would know you are putting your own life in danger. There's so much to get to. There is a stunning development that just happened in this story that we, I believe exclusively, just confirmed. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem mentioned in media interviews yesterday that the ICE agent who shot the driver in Minneapolis was involved. He was involved in a prior incident last June that was very similar to what happened yesterday. Well, we now have the video of that incident, and we've confirmed with the government that this is the relevant video that Kristi Noem was referencing. This is video of the incident she was referencing involving this same officer. He was dragged during an ICE arrest just this past June and got seriously injured. This same guy, this poor ICE agent. Per the Department of Justice, on June 17th, 2025, law enforcement officers attempted to arrest Roberto Carlos Munoz Guatemala, a convicted sex offender, on an immigration order. By the way, this is what ICE officers are trying to do. This is the terrible work that these lunatics are out there protesting against. They'd rather have Mr. Guatemala have access to their children, I guess, because this agent that they're now demonizing as a murderer was the one who stopped him, along with his fellow ICE agents. The guy was uncooperative. He refused to follow instructions. After warning him several times, an agent, who is the same agent involved in yesterday's shooting, broke the back window of the suspect's car so that he could open the vehicle from the inside. The man then accelerated his car. You can see it's the same agent. The guy had a mask on yesterday, but same hair. As he sped away, the agent's arm became trapped between the seat and the car frame. You can't see the agent in this video we're showing, but we are showing the car rushing away from the scene. The agent is on the driver's side toward the back, so you cannot see him being dragged, but he's being dragged, and that's undisputed, for more than 100 yards, while the maniac driving the car is weaving back and forth in an attempt to shake him from the car, completely immune to the thought of running over him or what other damage he was causing. The agent was eventually jarred free from the car, but suffered significant injuries to his arms and hand. Look at this. If you're only listening to this, you've got to go and check out our YouTube at 3 minutes after the hour. His arm looks mutilated. It's a shot of him in his hospital bed where you can't see his head, but you can see his arms and his legs. And that arm clearly shows the damage of what he had just been through. Okay, this is incredibly relevant to what this guy's perception of the danger was. Now, we'll get into the legal standard, which is more of whether it was objectively reasonable for him to think this woman was going to run over him. But that incident will play into whether it was objectively reasonable. Other ICE agents and other cops have been watching this happen time after time. It's happened over 100 times that ICE agents have been charged, rammed, or dragged by so-called watchers. They're calling her like an observer. You know, like we just have eyes on the cop. You are much more than an observer, madam. These guys are putting their lives on the line every day to arrest people like Mr. Guatemala, who is molesting kids. That's what they're doing there. That's what Mayor Jacob Fry appears to object to, not to mention Governor Tim Walz. What a shock. Okay, now we're going to walk you through the key videos from yesterday showing what happened in detail. That video we brought to you yesterday at the end of our show was ultimately the video that President Trump tweeted out as well. It is critical. So many of the people who jumped down the throats of these cops didn't see it or ignored it because it was an inconvenient to show her actually accelerating into the cop who shot her. But it's all there on tape. We'll begin with the moments leading up to the shooting. Currently, there are no videos we've seen showing what happened leading up to the incident. But there is a witness account that 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good, she's the one who was shot, Renee Good, was blocking traffic, hoping to impede ICE investigations. That's what she was doing there. All right. Her wife has admitted it. Democrats are calling her, as I pointed out, a quote, legal observer. Wrong. What's been reported so far about her background makes clear she was there to agitate, and her actual job had nothing to do with the law. She was a poet.
I woke up to some commotion. I heard some whistles going on out front, so I came downstairs to see what was going on. Wasn't even dressed. And there was a car, the Honda Pilot that's crashed over there now. There was a car blocking the 2 lanes of Portland traffic. And And the ICE agents got out and they were saying, get out of here, get out of here. She was the main car leading the protest, is my understanding. I talked to another guy who was driving behind her. But she was very successful in blocking traffic. She was doing what she was set out to do, and so they wanted to get her the hell out of there. Yeah.
So it looked like she was impeding ICE vehicles.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay.
That was her goal.
This is a sympathetic witness to her. The clip goes on. She's very angry at ICE. If anything, this woman had a reason to lie to make the woman driving the car, Renee Good, sound better. But there she is on camera saying, very clearly that this woman who was ultimately shot was leading the protests and impeding the traffic across this Portland Avenue, that she was parked perpendicular to the traffic. Now, that'll get you arrested pretty much 10 times out of 10. So this is not a fan of ICE, and clearly her eyewitness testimonial is not favorable to Ms. Good. In this still image, you see a federal agent who we believe is the agent who eventually fires at Ms. Good. The agent is being followed closely by a female protester. She has identified herself as Renee Good's wife. She has her phone up, likely recording him. The agent also has a phone in his hand, likely recording her. Did the agent have a negative interaction with these women that caused him to begin recording too? We don't know yet. But clearly something was going on before, and it wasn't needlepoint. We have not yet seen the actual video that was on the cop's phone. But here's video we do have of that moment and what happened afterward. Again, they both appear to be recording each other's actions. You see a gray truck pull up. We talked about that yesterday. 2 federal agents step out. The driver of the maroon SUV, Ms. Good, says, "What's going on?" The officers quickly walk up and tell Ms. Good to get out of the car and then to, quote, "get out of the fucking car." Things are escalating. Good's window is down. She's looking directly at them. There is no way she did not hear the commands to get out of her car, repeated commands. She then puts her car into reverse, and here is the part of the video with sound of the agents making the commands and her beginning to reverse. No! We believe that's her wife yelling no and recording. Right as Good reverses her car, you're about to see the agent who fired the shot move in front of the vehicle near the driver's side headlight. It's video. There's one guy on the side who's blocking the agent at issue, but you can see that there is an agent in front of her car. It's right there, black and white. At first, you only see the agent at the driver's side door, and his body is kind of blocking the shooting cop. He's fighting to get the car door open as Good goes into reverse. The agent who fired the shots moves into the frame in front of the SUV. Good is still reversing backward. She immediately puts it in drive and starts accelerating forward toward the cop. There was zero hesitation between Good reversing the vehicle and putting it into drive and clearly pressing the gas. By the way, this cop clearly would have heard the car begin to accelerate. About 2 seconds passes between the tires moving forward and the gunfire. The same agent then fires 2 more rounds. At that point, the SUV keeps moving forward before eventually crashing into a parked car. And the bullet hole that you can see is in the front windshield. The front. That's where he took the initial shot to stop her from running him over. The agent, again, who we understand was the one to fire the shot, did walk down toward the crashed SUV before walking back up and telling others to call 911. There was another angle of the shooting that we brought to you yesterday, which I mentioned, which is key. This video was obtained by the local ABC affiliate. We've circled the agent and we've slowed down the video. Look at this. I'm sorry, but he's getting run over when he fires the shot. You can clearly see her hit him. That's what happens. It's blurry, but you see him put his foot back to brace himself as he was hit by the car before he fires and moves to the side. Here's an image of his leg backward, appearing to brace himself. You've got to watch this on our YouTube channel if you're just listening to this now. We've added an arrow pointing toward his leg so you can see what we're talking about. Okay, this guy knew he was about to get hit. Now they're ripping on the cops because they didn't let some rando who claimed to be a physician, they had no idea whether he was, have access to the crime scene, and the woman who was behind the wheel of the car, apparently already dead. They did call 911. They did have EMS on the way, as you heard the officer say. There's no obligation to let some rando come over and corrupt your crime scene, all right? There's not. And there's no obligation to let yourself be run over by a dangerous instrumentality, which is what a car is, certainly an SUV, but any car. That you are being fed so many lies by the mainstream media right now, not to mention the Democrat officials in Minnesota. You really do have to pay attention to understand the law and what's real.
I'm Nate the Lawyer, and in this video, we're going to look at the Minnesota shooting, and you are going to decide if this was murder or if this was a justified shooting. We're going to look at the camera footage, we're going to look at the law, and we're going to look at the spin from both sides, and I'm just going to leave it to you to determine if this was justified or not. So first, we need to know what happened. Here is the police chief in Minnesota explaining exactly what happened at the time of the shooting.
My name is Brian O'Hara, BRIANO''HARA. I am the Minneapolis police chief. The preliminary information that we have indicates that this woman was in her vehicle and was blocking the roadway on Portland Avenue, midway between 33rd Street and 34th Street in the city. At some point, a federal law enforcement officer approached her on foot, and the vehicle began to drive off. At least 2 shots were fired. The vehicle then crashed on the side of the roadway.
So the next question is obviously, what was she doing and why was she blocking the street? Here's what the chief said.
So the question was, what can I share about the deceased? There is nothing to indicate that this woman was the target of any law enforcement investigation or activity. This woman was in her car, and it appears then blocking the street because of the presence of federal law enforcement, which is obviously something that has been happening not just in Minneapolis, but around the country.
All right, so now we know why she was there, to prevent ICE from arresting people who may be here illegally. So she was preventing their law enforcement activity. She was using her car to block their path, and something horrible happened. So first, as always, we'll start with the law. So you know what you're looking for when you see the evidence. And then we'll look at the evidence, and you are going to apply the law to the evidence so you can come to your conclusion at the end. So without any further ado, here's the law. There are 2 cases that we have to consider. Tennessee v. Gardner from 1985 and Graham v. Connor from 1989. These 2 cases direct how officers are going to be judged if they use deadly physical force against a subject. So we're going to start with the case Tennessee v. Gardner. Now, in that particular case, police shot a fleeing felon in the back. They witnessed the person committing a felony, the person started running away, and they shot and killed the person. And in Tennessee, it was legal to shoot fleeing felons in the back. But the Supreme Court said, no, that's actually not constitutional. And the Supreme Court said, unless the person is a serious threat to the officer or other members in the community, then you can't just shoot them in the back or essentially commit executions on the street because the person's running away from you. And as you can see from the Justice Department's own website, it's called the fleeing felon rule. Next, we move to the case of Graham v. Connor in 1989. Now, in that case, if police are using force, that force is going to be judged by what the court says is known as the objectively reasonable standard. The objectively reasonable standard is an objective standard used to judge an officer's actions. Under this standard, a particular application of force must be judged through the perspective of a reasonable officer facing the same set of circumstances without the benefit of 20/20 hindsight, and be based upon the totality of the facts that are known to that officer at the time the force was used. Now, under the objectively reasonable test for Graham v. Connor, the court gives us 3 factors that we should consider. Now, these aren't exclusive. There are many, many other factors that you can consider, but these are 3 the court points to in the case. 1, the nature of the 911 call. Bank robbery, more likely you're going to use force versus cat stuck in a tree. Then you have whether the suspect is resisting arrest. More likely that you're going to be using force. And then last but not least, this is from Tennessee v. Gardner. Remember, if the suspect is a serious threat to other officers or members of the community, then it would be objectively reasonable to use force to stop that threat. So now you know the law, and you're going to apply the law to the facts of this particular case. So let's look at the facts.
In this footage taken by a bystander just before the shooting, we can see Good's maroon SUV partially blocking the street. Good's partner, seen here outside the car, and ICE officer Jonathan Ross are filming each other. You can see Good in the driver's seat, waving cars by while Ross begins walking around her SUV. 2 more federal officers arrive in this gray truck and approach Good's vehicle while simultaneously speaking to her.
So law enforcement officers with lights and sirens and in full uniform are ordering a motorist who's blocking traffic to get out of their vehicle.
The whole encounter, from the moment an officer told Good to get out of her car to the 3rd shot, lasted just 7 seconds.
So now quickly, let's just break down what we just saw.
With the video slowed down, you can see one officer grabs the door handle as Good begins backing up the car. Officer Ross can now be seen filming with his left hand at the front of the car. You can see the front wheel spin forward and Ross draws his gun with his right hand.
So now I want to point you to the front tire and where it's at. The officer's in front of the car and the tire is pointing at the officer. So now if you hit the accelerator, you're going to run right into the officer. And as you can see, the person in the car is hitting the accelerator. That's why the tires are spinning. As you can see, the officer has his gun out. The tires are still pointed directly at the officer and the car is moving forward. Now, at the last second, the tires turn away from the officer, but the officer is struck by the vehicle, which you cannot see from this angle. Now, here's a second angle from the front of the vehicle. So you can clearly see the officer is actually hit by the car.
Well, the slowdown version is showing me that when the SUV pulls forward, they make contact with the agent in the street, and then immediately following that contact, you hear 3 gunshots follow.
So as CNN's expert has shown us, the officer was being struck by the vehicle and returned fire while the vehicle was literally hitting him. Here it is in real time. So next, the officer was recording this incident on a cell phone. So now let's look at the incident from the officer's perspective.
That's fine, dude. I'm not mad at you. Show your face. I'm not mad at you. That's okay. We don't change our plates every morning, just so you know. It'll be the same plate when you come talk to us later. That's fine. U.S. citizen, former. You want to come at us? You want to come at us? I say go get yourself some lunch, big boy. Go ahead.
Out of the car. Get out of the car. Get out of the car.
Whoa! So now here, the wife is antagonizing the officer, asking him essentially, what are you going to do?
I say go get yourself some lunch, big boy. Go ahead.
Out of the car.
So now they realize that ICE is about to arrest them for interfering in federal law enforcement activities. And the wife, who's standing outside filming, tries to jump back in the car.
Get out of the car.
So now what you're going to hear a lot in the media is that the officer placed himself in front of the car. But as you can see, that's not accurate because while the officer was standing still, the car actually repositioned itself and pointed the front of the car directly at the officer. Now, as the officer was trying to move toward the driver's side of the vehicle to get from in front of the car, the person hits the gas, striking the officer.
Whoa!
Now, simultaneously, while being struck by the car, the officer lets off 3 successive shots.
Whoa!
So now that you know the facts, now that you know the law, let's bring everything together so you can decide if this officer is justified or not. If we apply the Graham standards to the case at hand, was it now one call? Blocking traffic. Pretty light, right? Was the person resisting arrest? Yeah, the officers were trying to open up the car door to arrest her or detain her, and she resisted. She didn't stop the car and get out and talk to the officers. She was actively resisting. And then last, was she a serious threat to the officers or other members of the community? Well, to the officer standing in front of the car, the government's saying she was a serious threat. She hit the officer with the car. Where if you're on the other side of it, you're saying she wasn't a serious threat because she was trying to run away. The argument here is that this woman's case is more like Tennessee v. Gardner. The police essentially shot a fleeing felon. And the government is saying, no, she was a serious threat to that officer, and he responded with deadly physical force. Now, if you're on a jury, you're going to have to ask yourself, was that officer standing in front of the vehicle, was that a serious threat to that officer? When she hit the gas, car's going forward, and the officer's hit by the vehicle. And remember, the officer's shooting as the car is hitting him, so it's happening all at the same time. Split second. Now, this is where the media spin comes in, because on the left side of the political aisle, they're only showing you one video, this one.
Now, Glenn, that's one angle. There are obviously other angles that are floating around the internet right now, but I think all of them generally show roughly the same thing, which is that there is an ICE agent right at the corner of the vehicle, that the person in the vehicle was attempting to turn the wheel so that they could flee the scene, and of course the ICE agent used that as the opportunity to shoot and ultimately kill the person who was in the vehicle.
Now, just to show you how deceptive that was, he knows there are other angles. He knows there are other videos, and he says that none of them are going to make a difference. But obviously, he's totally lying, because I think this video makes a big difference in the way you analyze what happened. So now you know the law, you know the facts, and it's going to be up to people like you to determine if this officer is going to go to jail for murder or some type of homicide charge, or if this was a justified shooting because his life was in danger. Was he being reasonable, or was this criminal? I'll see you in the comment section. My name is Nate the Lawyer. I'm out. Peace. Okay, so now the screen has gone black, and for those of you who have watched to this point, I want to now give you my opinion, because I wanted the video to end, and now you to hear exactly what I think. Now, for those of you who don't know, I got 10 years of law enforcement experience. I also was an assistant district attorney, and, I've been a defense attorney for a long time. This is just my evaluation of the facts as they are. I think the officer has a good defense, and I think a conviction here is probably going to be very, very unlikely, even without the political nonsense. The reason why I think is because when the vehicle goes forward and the officer has the gun pointed at the vehicle and he's actually hit with the vehicle, if that happens, then I don't think there's really going to be any court that's going to say that that's not a serious threat. And for those facts to manifest themselves, it's going to probably lead to this officer not being charged with anything. They may say this is a good shoot. And in this case, I can see both sides where you could say this may not be as clean a shoot as you want, but I don't think this officer will go to jail. I don't think there's going to be any charges brought. And if there are charges brought, they're going to be brought in vain, because soon as you put an officer in front of a vehicle and the vehicle goes forward and the person's pressing the gas, it's honestly going to be almost impossible to convict that officer. It just is. It's standing in front of a vehicle that's coming at you is a serious threat. And a serious threat doesn't mean it has to kill you. It just has to seriously injure you. It can break your leg, for instance. That's a serious threat. Also, there's a lot of hindsight going on with the political commentary. Like, oh, you see, the officer could have moved out of the way, could have done something else. And the law doesn't work that way. It's not about what could have been done. It's what happened. You're supposed to avoid looking back and saying he should have done this. What happened at the time? And was he being objectively reasonable with the threat that had confronted him? Now, some people are saying it's the officer's fault because the officer is standing in front of the car and the officer placed himself in danger. Well, I'll say this. Two things. Number one, if there's a bank robbery, for instance, officers run into the bank and try to stop the bank robbers by shooting them. The bank robbers are killed. Do you think the bank robbers' argument is going to be the officers intentionally placed themselves in harm? No, because a crime was being committed and they were going to stop that crime. The second response to that question is that the officer being in front of the car doesn't give the person sitting in the car license to hit the gas and run down the officer. And then if the officer responds with deadly physical force, the person say, well, the officer was standing in front of my car, so I can kill them. That is not the way it's done here in America. Now, some people may say that it wasn't proportional. He overacted by shooting at the car who was turning away from him. But at the point in which he's hit by the car, he's in front of the car enough to make contact with the car. And I think that is going to be the determinative factor in this case. Now, if you disagree with me, I'll see you in the comment section. But I wanted to at least give you my opinion to show you that this case I'm struggling with, but tie generally goes to the runner. And in close cases like this, they're going to side with the officer. That's generally our system. But again, I'm not 100% positive that that's how it's going to happen or go down, but we'll see. Don't forget